everybody. We're going to start the meeting. Meeting called to order at 6:15 p.m. on July 11th. Welcome everybody to the Port Orange Neighborhood Council. We got a fairly full agenda today, and we're going to try to stick with the schedule to the best of our ability. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you all. All right, Secretary, please call the roll.
All right, David.
Here.
Hassan? Here. Susan?
Here.
Alex?
Here.
Jason? Absent. Andrew? Absent. Becky? Absent. Assad?
Yes.
Gabriel? Here. Isam?
Here.
And we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Item number 5. We have a motion to approve the May 9th meeting minutes.
Yes. I want to make a motion to approve the May 9, 2018 Port Orange Neighborhood Council minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion or items from the board on the minutes?
On the
Yes,
minutes?
Susan?
Page 2, under item 3, 1, 2, 3, 4th bubble down, it should be Winnetka Place, Village instead of Winnetka Place. Winnetka Village instead of Winnetka Place. And then the next page, page 3, the bullet right before 10, Special Investment Manager Christian instead of Tristan. That's it.
Any other comments?
Oh, I'm sorry, one more, page 4, very bottom under 12. The purchase, it says a mobile solar powered diesel with great, we should rent that again, just cross out rent that again. We purchased it.
So cross out the rent that again.
Yeah, we should rent that again, just cross out.
Okay. Any other comments? Any public comments on the minutes? All right, no public comments. Call the vote.
All right, David.
Yes.
Hassan? Yes. Susan?
Yes.
Alex? Yes. Jason is absent. Andrew? Absent. Becky? Absent. Assad?
Yes.
Gabriel? Yes. Isam?
Yes. Thank you. Item number 6, motion to approve the May 29th PRNC meeting minutes. Can I have the motion?
All right, motion to approve May 29, 2018 Port Orange Neighborhood Council minutes.
I'll second it.
All right, any board comments on the minutes? No board comments, any public comments on the minutes? No public comments, call the vote.
All right, David.
Yes.
Hassan.
Abstain.
Susan.
Abstain, abstain.
Alex.
Yes.
Jason's absent. Andrew's absent. Becky is absent. Assad.
Yes.
Gabriel, yes. And Isam.
Yes.
Well, absent doesn't count.
Majority.
Majority of present.
Okay, so motion passes.
Yep.
All right. Item 7, motion to approve the June 13 PRNC meeting minutes.
I want to make a motion to approve June 13, 2018 Port Orange Neighborhood Council minutes.
I'll second the minutes. Motion.
All right. Board comments on the minutes? All right, no comments. Public comments on the minutes? No comments. Call the vote.
All right, David.
Yes.
Hassan. Yes. Susan.
Yes.
Alex. Yes. Jason. Absent. Andrew. Absent. Becky. Absent. Assad.
Abstain.
Gabriel. Yes. Isam.
Abstain.
And motion passes.
All right, and finally, item 8.
All right.
I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve June 26, 2018 Port Orange Neighborhood Council minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Board comments?
Yes, I do have a small change on there. And roll call, there should have been 9 here, 1 absent. Oh, the number? Yeah, everything else is fine.
Okay. Any other board comments? Any public comments on the minutes? All right, no public comments, call the vote.
All right, David,
Yes.
Hassan? Yes. Susan?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Jason, absent. Andrew is absent. Becky is absent. Assad?
Yes.
Gabriel, yes. Isam?
Yes.
One motion passes.
All right, item 9 is the treasurer's report. However, the treasurer is not here.
He's on his way.
Oh, I see.
We table it?
That's Jason.
Oh, that's Jason.
Table it?
We see
Yeah, we'll
Jason.
table that. Without objections. Okay, item 10. Any presentations from representative elected officials and government agencies? Anyone in the room? Okay.
There was someone here from Katie. Oh, you want to?
No, I'm sorry. Hold on for a second. Who are you?
I'm with the Behavioral Progress Center.
This is for elected officials and government representatives.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. My fault. Not that I'm volunteering on the campaign.
That's okay.
Sorry, guys.
Okay. All right, item 11 is general public comments on items not on the agenda. Anybody would like to make a public comment?
Okay, now you can go.
Now you come on.
Now you can go. Sorry, I'm a little ahead of myself.
You know what? I would appreciate it if you let me call on people to get up, please.
Well, no, I let them
Please.
know. Well, I didn't
Please.
say to go up then. I said they can
Please.
now because it's public comment.
There are other people asking as well. Sir, would you please use the mic and address the board?
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm with the Katie for Congress campaign. I'm just making an announcement. If we're going to be doing a voter reg drive around here, it's going to be in Simi Valley, part of the 26th Congressional District. So if anyone's interested, you can talk to me after the meeting, and we can get you set up to come and do some voter reg with us. So yeah, thanks so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to say Carter.
Any other?
Name's Andre.
Tanya?
Yes.
Please, get up.
Okay, 3 things. I don't get, again, same thing, I don't get the phone call, a reminder about the meeting, and I really like it, and I would like to get the reminder on the top, the message. Second thing, you put up signs about the meeting starting from the street up here, and it's 6 o'clock, the meeting is at 6:15. This is a discrepancy. It should be corrected. And the third thing, we had 4th of July, and on the list of the sponsors, I didn't see Port Orange Council. I was very disappointed that we did not support the event. This is a huge event that everybody or most of us go, and our friends and the kids enjoy it. And they made lots of effort to prepare this, and they got lots of people. Everything was cleaned up. Next day in the morning, at 7 o'clock, it was like nothing happened. And you did not sponsor this event. I was very, very disappointed, and I would like to know why you didn't. For all those years, Port Orange Council did. Why didn't you? And will you next year? And I hope you will. I would like to get that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
No, you're in a bad mood. I'm not talking to you.
think that's a no. Okay. Item 11 is the presentation of the certificate of appreciation of Main Street and Starts. And folks, mic is yours.
So this is Laura Rathbone, I'm Don Larson. And there. Good. Good. Can't hear you. So this is Laura Rathbone, I'm Don Larson. And we're done. You know that. I want to give you some quick facts and figures for yourself so you can see our financial standing. I was under budget and ahead of schedule.
Can you love the mic a little more so people can hear you?
I was under budget and ahead of schedule, which I like to be. You don't hear that very much. The street was wonderful to work on. We did only 4 weeks because we were done. And I was not going to spend your money on hanging around picking up trash that far, because there wasn't any. We clipped the trees, we painted all the 30 fire hydrants, 2 coats, and did the trash, did the cleanup. Found out some new things about ourselves, how we work, that have made it better now for the rest of the cycles we've been on. We do, besides what Laura and Susan had done an outreach, we now do more outreach as we work. We found out in your project that we were running into people as we were working and pulled them in. That was, so they were right from your street. It was difficult to understand that, you know, it's not as though it's a very reliable group. We averaged about 5 people per every day. The numbers are this. I've just given Susan a copy of all of the signatures, so you have, that's the basic piece to do the math. We had 41 signatures I calculated, that means about 5 per day, twice a week. They came out to, for stipends at $35 a piece, $1,435. Then we add in 9 quarts of oil paint. Hey, hi. 9 quarts of oil paint. I gave you the flat paint myself because I had 5 gallons of it. I keep using that stuff. So we do the 5-gallon flat first, then we go to the shiny yellow, which makes it look good. 9 quarts of oil at $16 a piece, a quart, and $40 in brushes, 10 to a box, and it took us a couple of boxes of brushes. We throw those brushes away as we use them. That was $184 in paint. The food, we put $400 down on a card to the church for food, which is where we met. We spent $235 in food. That means we had, food was $235. That means there was $165 left. Okay, so now the good news is after the deductions, so these 3 or 4 main deductions here, we've spent $1,854 total, and you have $3,146 left for the next cycle. That was our point. We want to do it again, right? You got a nice street, you have an excellent street. It needs a little extra care all the time, but you should be proud of what you got up here. I'm proud of what you got up here. I'm working on it. I like it. And it was a real pleasure to be out there. We had a lot of community support, people coming up to see us. We weren't a big crowd or anything, but it was a real positive experience. And I want to do one more this year. So hopefully maybe September, October, November, we can get another one done. Okay? So that's the financials. I'm going to give it to Laura here. She's got some things for you. But thank you.
Hey guys, so I have some certificates of appreciation I'd like to give out. I
I personally want to say thank you to David and Jason. You guys came out with us, did the outreach, you joined us on the street. Thank you for that. I feel I owe Susan this certificate for me personally. Susan not only organized the outreach, cooked the meals, came out with us, purchased tap cards, printed directions to get to the winter shelter, joined us and joined them for breakfast, got to know with them, went to their case management meetings a couple times, actively engaged with landlords and employers to help the people in the crew. So Susan, you are a gold star in my book. And I'd like to get a picture with you guys on the award. Thank you.
And step behind, step here, have a picture with them.
You know what's nice about this group too, that especially with these people up in here, is they started dreaming about new things. Dreaming about new art, new things for your street. This program also gave you a different voice for yourself. And that is one of the extra pieces in this that you can't calculate. But because of these people back here and this nice board we have, that worked. So, thank you, Porter Ranch. Oh, am I in your way, Frank? No? You just need to touch my arm? Like my mule. You want to touch my arm all the time. Okay, thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Great. So I got to run because I got to be at 4:30 tomorrow morning to do another thing.
One last comment, John. We're gonna find, for the next time, the community is leaning heavy on us about Claymore Park and the slope in that part that is a mess. That would be a great place to start.
I can work that out.
We'll see.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'll see you later. Hey, I know what party you're that trouble girl. Like you see that?
No.
That's right. You got something where?
Can we, the men and women in blue, you're joining us. I want to give you the floor. If you want to say something, you want to address?
No, it's all right. We're with the party. We're just...
Come on, Captain Jones, say something for us.
Don't be shy.
Teach us to be safe. Come on.
Let's get my hand though.
Let's give him a hand.
Item 13, board member comments. Anybody? Yes? There we go.
All right, I have some flyers over there on the table. This is Council Mitch Englander is an LAPD Devonshire Division. Department of Parks, Recs and Park are doing a night out. It is August 7th, 6 to 10:30. From 6 to 8, we have popcorn and treats, and we're going to have our spinning wheels. We can win fun stuff like this. And then they have a movie for you, Furniture. That looks like an animation, and it's at Northridge Park, 18300 Lamar Street. And it looks like a lot of fun. I know the LAPD has been doing this for quite a few years. And I hope y'all join us. The flyers are over there. It's also posted on our website. What's the date? It is Tuesday, August 7th. It's always the first Tuesday in August. 6 p.m.
All right, thank you. Any other board comments? No?
Yeah, can I ask, is there any update on the Castle Bay meeting place situation? Having your meetings in Castle Bay?
No, I have not filled out the application to submit to the city.
Okay.
But that's what needs to happen first. We are booked here through November, but obviously we can change that. We don't have December here because of the school schedule, so that might be a good first time, but it actually depends on when LAUSD will grant us the fund.
Right. And then maybe I'll give a little bit of an update on the bump finale with the tree thing.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, we got the trees removed, the 22 trees and the 35 trims, and it's nice that the fire department's here. I'm sure they appreciate that. And one of the things that we need to do is to clear the tree wells of all the shavings. And we need help with watering the trees along Tampa in front of the fire station on Tampa. Oh, they're on Corbin, yeah. So that's one of the things that we need to do moving forward. And then the other thing that Don Larson was mentioning that came up while we were doing the Clean Streets, Clean Starts, one of the ideas that we had was talking about painting the traffic control boxes. There's about 12 of them along Rinaldi. Those boxes, you probably barely notice them, but there's a good opportunity where we can do public art, and there's money available within the council district to do this, so this isn't even something that we may not even have to pay for. So it's a win-win for the community. That's all.
Okay. Any other board members? All right.
I'm sorry, so when will I get the answer on the question about the 4th of July? Why did it choose?
I'll answer. It's not a question-answer session. I'll give you the answer during the break.
Oh.
Item 12. No? Never mind. We did 12 and 13. Item 14. Community update on the APMC health study at Nordella.
Okay, so I'm here to address the board and the community. Sorry, I have my back to you.
You can do this in 15?
I hope so. We're going to have Q&A at the end, so that would be dependent upon you. The update is as follows. We had our main meeting. They decided on allocating two $500,000 allotments of money. Prior to that, I was a little confused on the committee and how it worked, thinking that there was a vote. There was not. It's an advisory committee, and that's fine. So we were there to advise and give our opinion. After they had come to a conclusion, they would be spending $500,000 on essentially doing a concentration of flow of air through the hills, looking for concentrated pockets of potential chemicals. They were going to overlay that with a study of symptomatology, which would be in children and elderly, concentrating on a cohort to see if there was any association with that. I took that home and wasn't really happy personally, and did some research on possibly spending the funds a little bit more appropriate to look at the patients. After doing a lot of research, talking to a lot of people, came up with a study that is well accepted in the literature, actually by the federal government, which mandates that to businesses that have employees that deal with benzene. It is a simple CBC, or a complete blood count. So I recommended that. I think you all got the letter I sent to you, the board members, via email, and I have it here to hand out to the people. It's only have 25 copies, so I don't know if that'll stretch, but we can get more. Upon that, that was done probably about 6 to 7 weeks ago, and then finally heard back, not from one science party on the committee. So I reached out to Joe Kay, got the explanation of where they're at, and that's where they're at. So as an advisor, I accept that. That's their funds, their monies to do what they want. As you know, I think most of you know, there is now new information to this community about the elevation of the benzene levels that are, and potentially you have been exposed to. I'm not an attorney. I will not comment on attorney issues. I'll comment on the science issues of this only. These levels are very concerning to me and only support my thinking tenfold in moving forward with the CBC study. The CBC study would look at patients per unit time, pull the data, look at the data, and look for 3 parameters within a CBC, which is the overall white blood cell count, the percentage of lymphocytes found within, and the platelet count. All of these are very well accepted in the literature, even by our federal government, as parameters of benzene exposure in the people. These changes can lead to acute myeloid leukemias and other hematological cancers within the human body. So we want to initiate that as quickly as possible. We're devising right now, and we're working with some people out of UC Berkeley to set this program up and work forward, of which all of the announcements and the specifics of how to get your blood drawn will come forward. Our initial negotiations with the lab, we will be able to do a CBC on each person for $7. Very, very. With that, I open up to questions.
Do we believe that the exposure is limited to people from the time, or is it ongoing?
Don't know, and that's hopefully something that the study will address.
Would you want CBCs from at that time if we had them?
We actually have an opportunity, which don't want to go into deeply, to look at CBCs all the way back until 2008. So we'll be comparing years of this community and then be comparing it in control groups. And also other areas that are exposed geographically to the gas industry.
Can you hold on for a second, please? Any board members have a question? Please go ahead.
As far as the platelet count goes, what kind of evidence does benzene show in platelet levels? Like sticky platelets, high platelets, low platelets?
Well, the first screening issue, first of all, just to let you know, when you go back and you look at the bone marrow, all cell lines, including the platelet, comes from one cell. So the benzene can affect any cell line you want. With platelets specifically, it will show initially as a low platelet count. Usually you have between 150 and 400,000 per person. Below that is suspicious that something is going on suppressing your bone marrow.
And another question, how would it affect platelets in animals?
I'm sorry?
A low platelet count in animals. Same thing? Numbers are different, but
Can't
dogs
answer
and
that. I would
cats.
think, though, that if their genotype is anything close to it, relationship, which is important to understand, benzene itself is an irritant but not toxic. The metabolites from benzene are very toxic. There's numerous toxic metabolites created by your liver, and there's numerous mechanisms of action to be genotoxic. So it's very wide and it's a high association. I'm sorry.
I just want to open the floor for the board for quick questions and then the public. Go ahead, Dave.
Just a follow-up question, because Becky was a very pertinent question. So there are a lot of homeowners that have animals. Can we find out what the cost would be to have the animals tested with their blood?
That's interesting. I don't know
Can
much
you reach
about
out to
it.
maybe a veterinarian?
I'm sure you could. We can work with them and try and help them. If that, I haven't seen any literature on animals in regards to benzene toxicity.
Any other board question? No? Okay, public.
Do you know what levels are these days, the last couple of months, for benzene release or benzene? How is benzene affecting us currently compared to how it affected us 2 years ago during the drought?
Don't know the exact numbers. That's all coming out. And again, I'm not an attorney, but that's all coming out in depots. You as a community, in my opinion, have had a huge success in mitigation with the winning of getting the person back, the PMK or person most qualified to make the opinion on benzene. So they now have them coming forward and trying to get at the truth, which I applaud the firm that's doing it, because it really opens up the health door, and really, in my opinion, is the most important thing with your litigation, but that's just my opinion.
I'm going to open it to the
I just have
public.
one
You asked two
I know,
questions.
but
I want to open it
where
to
are
the
we getting the
public.
testimony?
And we open it to the public first. You've been patiently waiting, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to know whether these increased numbers mean a bigger spread around the valley for benzene affecting people, like, say, Little Mills and Westport. And are you going to do any CDCs for people who live in Chatsworth?
We're going to do CBCs and look at zip codes and take it out from ground zero, which would be the Aliso Canyon, and look at everyone on out. We'll have the ability to do that if we computerize the data.
Just a second, sir.
Yeah, I live ground zero right here. And I have CDC testing every year for the exposure of gas, oil, and airplane. And I have all records. So
Which is fantastic, but one thing we don't want to fall into is we would like one lab doing all the testing with two pathologists looking at the blood.
that's my next question. So
Good answer.
my next step is to go to your lab or the lab that you assign to. Okay.
The lab that we're going to be working with is known as Primex, okay? Very good lab. I've worked with them for 20 years, and they're also community members, and they are definitely willing to help.
We're going to get email from you guys from
It'll all be set up, and I don't know how to get it to the community. I don't know your mechanism of broadcast here, so we'll try and get it to the people who go on Facebook, social media. I'll present it to ESOM, and we can go from there.
Yeah, so that was my question. If I wanted to find out how do I go about going to Primex to get a blood test, and is it going to be announced via a Facebook page, or what's the method of communication? Because I have friends that aren't here in the meeting, I'd like to tell them.
Primex will have two mechanisms. We're setting this up, so it's still in the infancy stages. But the proposed theory is that you'll be able to go to a draw station anytime you want. I'm signing an order, so you don't need anything. You can just tell them you're part of the study, put your arm out, they'll draw you, take your $7, and you go on. Or you can come to my office. They're sending out a mobile phlebotomist but on Wednesday mornings between 9 and 12. They'll be there, they'll draw your blood and send it off.
Yeah, what is it?
Stay with me for a second. Ma'am?
Is all this part of the APO? I missed that part of your...
That's negative. Now, their information, I hope we can collaborate and do this. I did present that to them, you will see in the letter. I think they're on a different path. Could we potentially collaborate and overlay this with it? Yes, I think that would be very exciting to do, depending on our findings.
This is independent of the APO meeting.
Totally independent.
Where is Primex?
Well, we'll give you all that information in time to come, of where to go to have it drawn.
Okay,
But
and
they're local.
it will be like a frame of time that you will say, okay, it will start, for example, from the 15th of August and end on the 15th of September. Is there like a frame time or?
We're going to be doing this study until 2022.
So we have to wait for it?
Benzene is a toxin that can affect you starting, some of the literature says 1 year, most of it says 3 years, up to 7 to 10 years later. So if these levels are true, as counsel, your plaintiff counsels have found out, these are very, very, very concerning.
Okay. Lady?
How will you take into account viral illnesses like mono, which can affect?
We're looking at the design of the study, speculating if the study group is large enough, the distribution of all of the other differential diagnoses of leukopenia, which is low white count, will be distributed equally.
People will be very concerned about these results. Will you be giving the results to those who will be operating them?
Every patient has their relationship with the lab. Your payment is to the lab. I receive zero, nothing, zip. And you can request your labs be sent directly to you.
So again, my question, how are we going to count the viral illness?
Well, again, this has stated that viral illnesses will be here as well as it will be here. So the distribution of disease within the community is assumed to be the same. Is any data perfect? Absolutely not. This is as close as we can get.
Someone's raising their back, hand in the back, and I can't see who it is. Is that you, Helen? Yes. Oh, please.
Would this benzene affect factor A or factor B?
That's a good question. Like hemophilia or von Willebrand's or any of those? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I have to do some research on that though.
My daughter was the only one saw that move for a lot of health issues.
I remember you telling me this, yeah. I haven't seen anything so far on the literature.
Frank?
I will add one thing. There are 2 noted mutations, genetic mutations that people can walk with will make them more susceptible to benzene-induced AML. Where were we?
Frank?
Thank you, Dr. Peter. You touched on it, the leukemias, but can you tell us a little bit more? When I hear what I heard from that came out to the courts, 1,000 to 9,000 times higher than some certain number. Can you please talk to us about that level, how it's set, and more importantly, how can benzene affect us? What are we at risk of?
Well, the first part of the question is that what does it do to you? Again, it affects that one stem cell that makes any cell line. So you can have neutropenia, you can have low eosinophil counts, you can have low platelet counts, you can have, and remember one thing, and this is important, this is like going to the doctor and having a colonoscopy. I'm sorry to talk to people at my backside here, but I don't know how to get 360 here. You go to the doctor, you have a colonoscopy, and they tell you you have a polyp. Well, the polyp isn't colon cancer. They'll take it out and they'll look at it under a microscope and they'll say, you have dysplastic changes, and they'll stage them. And then it goes from normal cells to all of these different changes and then to colon cancer. This is in essence like that. There's another super specific test that we're looking into with Berkeley right now, and it's called benzene oxide, and they call it adducts. So what happens is it gets into your system, the liver metabolizes it. It goes to benzene oxide and it attaches to the hemoglobin molecule. Anybody have diabetes, they'll know about a glycosylated hemoglobin or an A1C. It's the same thing, and we can actually measure your acute exposure. So I thought that was fascinating, and I just learned that about 2 weeks ago.
How's it going to, what can benzene do?
Leukemia, what else? Absolutely. I mean, the end stage on all of this is cancer, and cancers of the blood. So AML, CLL, multiple myeloma. Then there's other changes called MDS or myelodysplasia syndromes, big words, and it can wipe your bone marrow out altogether, giving you aplastic anemia, which actually you've had 2 or 3 cases in this community, which I've actually consulted on.
What were the 3 things you said you're looking for in the CBC?
Low white count overall, percent lymphocyte, and total platelet count are the 3 parameters that have been looked at in the literature. I'm out of time. I'm sorry I have to go.
Is there anything that people can do to help strengthen their immune system to kind of help them with resisting anything, any damaging effects?
Well, glutathione is the one thing that's well documented. Glutathione is over-the-counter. The NAC molecule, or NAC, is N-acetylcysteine. That's actually what you want to take, because when you take oral glutathione, your gut chews it up, your liver metabolizes it before you can use it. The glutathione, NAC makes glutathione in your body. So when you get the glutathione, when you get the oxidation reduction reaction, it actually pushes it the other way and can help you in all of the toxins.
Dr. Nordella, how often are you recommending that we get blood drawn? Did you say
The design right now is set for 6 months, And we will be looking at you depending upon the results of that test every 3 months and sometime soon.
And one more question. Since during the blowout itself, when the health department sent out directing that pretty much ordered doctors not to do any pathology or clinical tests for exposure, if we get alarming results, how do we approach our doctors? Out of concern, like, I think I'm on the way to cancer or whatever.
Well, yes. First of all, we can't say that. We can just say factually that you have this changes and you've been exposed initially. The clear thing that has been shown in the literature, not to be exposed anyway. And sometimes they'll reverse. So, unfortunately, I think a lot of physicians are not up to speed on this with their continuing medical education, so they don't know. So when you go in, that's why they put you off, or they don't know, and then you need to go, to specialist to specialist.
Just simple.
Thank you. I apologize for my tardiness. Doctor, thank you for being here. I missed most of this presentation, but I presume we have focused primarily on benzene, which is, from my understanding, one of potentially 200 chemicals. We were all exposed to extremely high levels of benzene from what we've learned, and likely very high levels of others. I know we don't know the others, but can you explain to the board and to the community, benzene isn't in a vacuum in terms of our exposure. It is mixed in and in our bodies with potentially hundreds of other toxins, which is going to affect how our body reacts to the benzene and on the side the others. Can you spend just a moment and talk about what we've learned in the framework of a polytoxin exposure?
Yeah, polytoxins is a tough topic because there's not much in the literature, but anything that you take in is probably metabolized by the liver. So it's the health of the liver that is important to you. When you have competing sites for metabolism on enzymes, then you free up other things, and that's why when you go to the doctor and they say, go to the pharmacy, and they tell you, you can't take these two drugs together because they're competing. So if they compete for that site of metabolism, the one drug rises very high while you continue to take it, and becomes more toxic to the body. So that's the simplest way I could explain it. So polytoxins, and especially we don't know what you guys have been exposed to. We know some, but we don't know all.
Right in the back.
Dr. I apologize for being late. I came quite a ways.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Oh,
Sorry.
yes, sure. My question is in regards to benzene, because I've had several surgeries, and I'm not saying I am a candidate, but I'm a possibility because I lived out here, and I did a lot of marathoning. Can it cause coagulation of the blood?
Coagulation?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me. Any other questions?
Coordination of the what?
I'm sorry.
What is the coordination?
It's to clot. To clot.
To clot the blood?
Yeah. That's what she asked.
Randy?
Sir, so you said $7 per person, but that's individuals are paying it, or are you trying to reach out to organizations to cover those who are poorer?
I have not myself, but that's always welcome, I'm sure. But I think for $7, it's like a big Starbucks. Maybe we could.
Well, you're talking about some people doing it over and over and over again. So.
Right, but you're doing 6 months, so that's $14 a year. So 2 Starbucks.
Not a problem for me, but for some.
All right. Last question. Go ahead.
Yeah, do these higher amounts of benzene that have been discovered mean that the harm will spread wider in the valley or LA than we thought?
Well, that's one thing we're going to be looking at is this 5-mile kind of veil that was said. I'm not sure where it came from. But when we can look at the zip codes on out, we can chart it and look at distances. There was a huge study done in regards to toxins in Colorado. They did this exact same study and found as you moved in 10 miles closer towards the storage site, that the ALL or leukemia actually rose 4.3% in the community, which is significant.
All right.
4.3 times, did I say percent? I apologize. 4.3 times.
So anybody in the rally can come and take the test, right? It doesn't matter what this is.
Correct, and then the data will be dumped into a HIPAA-compliant server. No personal information will be on these CBCs. The only thing will be there is the sex and the age of the patient and the result.
All right, thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
I have a few more questions.
Can you let me know if you're going to have a question? So, Lane, and then Penny. Go ahead. Lane.
Dr. Nordella, in addition to the benzene, as we know, there was Bragon, xylene, and mercaptans, goodness knows what's in there. Does that mean we're going to discount everything else and focus on the most important, the benzene, or will we be able to?
No, but I'm only one person.
Yeah. Right. I knew, that's why I hesitated to ask.
Of the VOCs, you have a couple. The ones that I worry about the most in the VOCs are the benzene. It's the highest studied molecule, and I think it's the most potential for disease and pathology. That's why we're focusing on that. You also have heavy metals in here, and we have just opened the doors on that. And that is going to be, I think, bigger than the benzene. So just a heads up to you. Formaldehyde has been dumped, and no, we're not going to ignore them, but we only have so much resources to study, so we have to choose what we're going to do.
And not enough money, that's what I was wondering.
Yes, I'm broke, so. AQMD has asked that we possibly could use this information on top of their information that they're going to do with the two $500,000 logins. So there is a possibility, but I have not had any communication with them except for the letter that you guys will have in a minute.
Okay.
Piggyback on Lori's question, is there some way that we can have a town hall with doctors, say Basie, where my doctor is, and Kaiser and all those major ones, because, I mean, when you bring up like my ALT scores, I told you about at the last meeting that, and my doctor is puzzled why that particular test. Maybe your doctors can talk to you and get information that might help their patients and maybe encourage them to take part in the study.
I would be more than happy to talk to any of them, but they're an unusual breed. So we'll just leave it at that. And sometimes there won't be a lot of communication there, but, you know, that's why you work with the people better.
Anybody else?
I have a question. You all right?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Doc.
Hey.
I was wondering if you could tell us, for instance, people that work out at the YMCA, they're right in the heart of this and they're running and their metabolism's a lot higher, a lot faster, versus people that were either coming in and out of the community or just staying at home, running the air conditioner. Is there different exposure levels, but because they're working out so much, how's that going to be for those folks? Should we be looking at those people, or do one of those people be more concerned about getting your testing done more frequently because of it?
Well, it's an excellent question, and you're correct, and it bleeds over into, bleeding is not probably a good thing. But it actually will go over into the issue of who gets affected worse by this? Children. Why? Because their basal metabolic rate runs higher. So any time that you're cranking this through your body and metabolism, your liver is working, you're making these toxins. Numerous toxins, not just one, not just benzene oxide, I can give you the names, but so the issue is that they all have a different mechanism of attacking the DNA to mutate it. And that's why you get a variety of different syndromes from it. So yes, you're absolutely correct. Anybody who increases their metabolic rate, okay, that's why alcohol, people who drink a lot, their P450 cytochrome system is actually buffed up, and they crank it more, and they're at higher risk. Thank you.
Andrew?
So with that thought in mind, that children are the most vulnerable sect of our population, we are sitting at one of the two schools that are at ground zero. And these poor children, both here and Castle Bay, and I don't want to exclude the children at Beckford and Darby and Topeka and Germain and so on and so on. But these two schools had their children here for 3 months until they moved at winter break. can the board assist in a way to get this information into these schools? Because there are, what, 1,000 kids here, PRCS?
1,200.
How many? 1,100, another 600 or 700 at Castleberry. There's 1,800 kids who are affected, who could be, massively affected. So I think the board needs to help, we need to have a conduit here so that we can get this information to these schools, to the administrations, to the PTAs, the booster clubs, etc. That these students should, there should be a line at the door at Primax to have these people, these children in this study for the next umpteen years.
I agree, and I would be more than happy if you could aggregate them.
I sit on the board here,
To be,
so we'll work on it.
that we could do a presentation to them to get them involved.
Yeah, when the gas leak first happened, you guys weren't on the board yet, but the first 5 months, every single month there was a different meeting, whether it was a parent group meeting at the school, whether the PRNC put it on, whether it was at the church. But if you advertise it enough and point out those particular things, like the 2,000 students, come and find out how it affects your kids and highlight it like that on a poster or flyer or notice, they will come, because these rooms were packed. There was standing room only here and at the church the first 2 or 3 months of the gas leak.
I think to make a statement to that, I'd like to see the community, through this organization, get involved. The apathy is high. We've got to get rid of it. If you guys want the answers, we're trying to give them to you. But if people don't respond, can't help it. So it's very important. They've got to come out and they've got to get involved.
Is there some way that we can test the homeless people who are out on the streets 24/7 breathing this in? Is there some way that my neighborhood council, West Coast Neighborhood Council Homeless Committee can help you to do that? To line them up and test them on the streets?
I think it's going to be hard to do that because I don't have a phlebotomist to go to the street. I think it's very gracious of Primex to do what they're doing. And I think that would be a little difficult if we could get them to come into the office. We could draw them there. But otherwise.
Is there an informational website that people could distribute to other people that might have been able to attend this meeting?
The only way that we have so far has been Facebook, and I'm not a media guy, but...
No, the community will help you get this message. We will help you.
There we go.
Whatever it takes.
There we go. Get involved.
There was another question behind her.
I'm sorry.
Just a sec. Can you please speak up?
Sure. I think earlier you had said that there are genetic markers for leukemia that you're predisposed. Is that something that you can test for, like you would test for having that marker?
Yes, but it's very complicated and very expensive.
We're on Facebook. What do I put to find this information? Or you, or how?
I have no idea. Maybe they can spread it around to you. I don't know the Facebook pages. I'm not a Facebook guy.
The board agreed to put it on neighborhood council site for sure, and we will say Porter Ranch, Matt.
Yeah.
Good with that, great. There's a couple of gas leak pages on Facebook. If you search Porter Ranch gas leak, you'll find pages. You may have to become a member. The committee of the board can do your motion thing, that post on your site at PRNC, PorterRanchNeighborhoodCouncil.org. That would be wonderful if it was posted there. Okay.
Lori?
Has the Department of Health been involved with any of this?
What?
Good question.
With the Department of Health, can they put out something?
Answer that question. I don't know.
No.
Okay.
Dr. Nordella, thank you. I just appreciate it.
Dan?
Sorry.
And these people are exposed too, by the way.
Yes.
They live here.
Yes.
As well.
Go ahead.
24/7.
Hi, thank you. You mentioned the gas leak back in they have similar quantities of benzene?
It wasn't even a leak. It was just everyday.
Okay, so it was a facility like up there right now that's not leaking like we had it leak with the blowout, and they had 4 times as great numbers as they were moving in. So really, there's nothing like this that we've ever encountered.
Uncharted waters.
So we know that we're in a world of hurt.
So we're putting the paperwork out there, and with all your guys' help, and again, I echo the community things to the first responders. You guys have been running your butts off with all of these calls. We appreciate you.
Okay, let's take a 10-minute break. As we proceed,
I got what?
before we do the item 15, we tabled the treasurer's report for the treasurer to be here. Mr. Treasurer?
We see you.
Okay. Can we bring item 9 down?
Sure. The report is... No, the report is very light. We have spent no money in the fiscal year because, stop it over there. Stop it. We have to have a budget in order to have our funds released. You'll see that item farther down the agenda. So at the moment, the report is, we have all of our $42,000, which is our budget for this year, and we'll deal with that here in a few minutes. That's it.
Okay. Also, our young representative is here, and she asked if she can have a few minutes. I'm not sure it's a good idea, but we'll open the floor.
Has it ever not been a good idea? Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine O'Burberry. I'm the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment representative to the PRNC Neighborhood Council. Congratulations on all your accomplishments this month, and every month. So, as for the updates, they went out in the monthly profile as they always do, but I just want to remind you.
Can't hear you.
Is this better? I will talk slower. Thank you. I just wanted to remind you of a few upcoming deadlines. So August 1st is the deadline to submit your stipulation worksheet to the city clerk for elections. So that will be for next year. That stipulation worksheet.
No, it's on 19.
Correct.
Does it need a vote?
Yes.
It's due when?
August 1st. That's okay. At the next meeting, I'll just save it and pass the deadline. Don't put that on my first transition. So, I guess on August 15th, you will submit the election stipulation worksheet. Inventory, have you? Okay, great. And then, obviously, as Andrew mentioned, the budget. So, you guys are on it, as always. Thank you. And I will be here to answer any questions. That's all.
Anything else we are missing?
I guess we won't know until we get there.
All right, thank you. All right. Let me fire up the presentation.
Hopefully, check it will work.
All right, everybody, I'm going to try to tell you what this is and try to stick to the time as well. Let me set it up. How much did I have on?
20 minutes. 20 minutes minus whatever. Yeah. Wait a few minutes.
think my answer is
All right, so one of the things we did this past week, this past year, was to put out a mail-in survey that was the first for us for a long time. And we were able to do it, frankly, because of the financials that we had last year. So we took advantage of that, and it was great to be able to put out a survey that went into mailboxes as opposed to just listen to ourselves inside our internet bubble. And so I think it was very revealing to me, and I hope that everybody will find it revealing, will learn a few things from it. So let me go through it. I apologize for the formatting. I'm better at that, but I had to switch projectors. So, of course, clicker is not going to work. Or should it? I'm going to do something. Bear with me.
Sam, was it supposed to be to all those stakeholders?
Give me 1 second. I will tell you what. I know. You know how I didn't. You know I didn't send it to you. You know that, right? And you believe that, Helen, right?
I wish I had that.
Say the same thing? Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. And I call this preliminary because I thought we had all the responses, and then Gabe gave me 7 today, so we're going to update it. But go ahead. First thing is we sent the paper survey to approximately 4,500 residential addresses and 1,400 business addresses in Porter Ranch, a total of about 5,900, let's say about 6,000. The residential addresses were obtained from a title company, and the business addresses were obtained from the city. Unfortunately, we found out after the fact that about 3,200 addresses are not listed under single-family residences or multifamily housing. They're listed under planned unit developments. HUDs show up on a different list, not on the list that includes the single-family residences or the multifamily residences. So, and that usually is all the gated communities. And so that was another 3,200 addresses that did not get the survey. That's the problem that we have. Go ahead. Now, the survey first was reviewed and approved by city attorney so that the questions are appropriate, and that's something for this and for everything else I need everybody to understand. When we sit at this table, we are city department. We have to function by city rules. We're not just community representatives. We are city unpaid volunteers, and we have to function by their rules. So sometimes we may look like we're non-responsive. It's only because we cannot respond. But that's a topic for another day. Survey was printed at FedEx office. It cost us about $6,500, and frankly, that was even a little more than we had budgeted. So if we had the 3,200 in there, probably would have busted the bank. So these things are expensive to print and send out because we had to print the survey, which, I mean, there was no cost of creating the survey. That was personal times. But then it had to be printed, folded. We had to print and insert return address envelopes. And they have to insert the survey and the return envelope in the outgoing envelope, put a stamp on it, and mail it. So all these added together cost us about $6,500. So what did the survey ask? It asked for, what is your top 3 priorities? what should the PRNC spend its budget on the most? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, and your opinion of the Aliso Canyon facility? Your meeting attendance, how many meetings you've attended, I'll talk about that a little bit. Voice your opinion, whatever you want to let us know about, not necessarily for a specific question, just tell us. And if you're not on the list, would you like to be added to the list? So it was part of an outreach outside the internet bubble, as I said, for people that just deal with paper. So on the priorities, here's what we asked, and on the use of city funds, on the priorities, we listed Aliso Canyon, public health, safety and policing, environmental sustainability, community beautification, traffic, schools education, public transportation, homelessness, and other, as people just tell us what other we did not list here that is of interest to you. And we asked them to select 3. On the right, we asked them to select 2 items that they think our money should be mostly spent on, which is the $42,000 that we get from the city for our work. So we asked for community beautification, environmental sustainability, local nonprofit organizations that through the NPP applications, safety and traffic, and community-wide events like we did in the park. On Aliso Canyon and the meetings, on Aliso Canyon we asked, what is your opinion? Should it close immediately? Should it close as soon as possible? Should it remain open? Do you not have an opinion on the matter? Or what else do you want to say? On how many meetings we asked for the last 12 meetings, how many of you attended? We gave options of none, less than 3, between 3 and 6, and more than 6. Okay? So here are the responses that we received, at least so far, before the last 7 I got. Paper surveys filled out and returned. Frankly, we had low expectations, so it was a good outcome. We had just about 400 returns. Just to remind you, in the entire election, we had 400 people vote at the last election. So this is as many as people as voted through the paper election, and that's only the paper returns. We also replicated the survey online on our website, and we put it out in the e-blast. Anybody who wants to just go to this link and fill it out. We had a database collecting the responses, and so we received 146 online English represent answers. We also had an effort to translate it into Korean because of the larger size Korean population in the community. But frankly, we only got 3 responses. I still need to translate them with our friend back there, so I need some help with translation because the answers are in Korean, so I need some help with that. Go back for a second. And so the total of 549, that's a 9.2% response rate from what we sent out. For mass mailers, this is not a bad answer, bad response. But also I want to say that we received 280 email addresses for people that said, here's my name and email address, put me on the list. So I don't know how many of them are new versus ones that already are on the list and just wrote their name. So we need to reconcile and see what it is, how many of these are new. But that's one outcome we have.
Were you surprised how many online responses you
I was, yes. Okay, so top priorities. So I've organized the data in terms of percent of respondents. So for this year, and you'll see the total number of respondents are not always the same because some people answered one question but did not answer another. So for the question on top priorities, we have 539 total responses. And people picked 3. And so I pulled them and ranked them. So on top, Aliso Canyon is 73% of the respondents said this is one of their 3 top priorities. Safety and policing, 60% also listed it as one of their top priorities. Homeless issues, 31%. Traffic, 29%, and community beautification at 29%, and then schools, public health, environmental sustainability. I had a bunch of others, 10%, that's about 54 responses. But in terms of our work as a board, I think we haven't done as much focus on safety and policing, but it is a big item for the community, and we need to regroup and talk about that. But as a response, it was very clear from the community that it's a big item for them. On the other, I wanted to break them down. So if you go to the next slide, here are all ones that said other concerns. Frankly, when you look through them, even though they listed others, the identified items, there are actually some of the ones that were on the list already. So it's not as many new, but there were some, quite a few comments, well, about overgrowth, but that translated mostly into the traffic concerns. So it went into the traffic category. But there was a lot of concern about construction, impact on growth, the commercial developments, impact on traffic, those kind of issues were in here. Next. Meeting. 79% has never attended a meeting over the last 12 months.
But they actually completed surveys.
But they completed the survey. And you know what? I can appreciate the fact that if you sit on this side of the mic, the meetings get boring. So, yeah.
No.
Okay. Except when we have the treasurer's report. That's the exciting part.
Maureen and I are the 2%. Yep.
So, but 79% has never attended, and 14, less than 3, and you see the numbers. So, you know, I would say we have work to do, but frankly, again, participation doesn't necessarily mean you have to attend. People participate in different ways, and we have to find those ways and reach out to them without the physical presence of the center. Go ahead. European and Felicia Canyon, 50% of the respondents said close it down immediately. You?
Yeah.
29% said close it down as soon as possible. 14% said keep it in operation. And 7% had no opinion on the matter. The 14%, a lot of them were tied to statements like, it remains in operation as long as there's this safety measure and that safety measure and things like that. It's operated responsibly, there's oversight, things like that. So, nonetheless, this is the outcome of the survey as we receive. So, based on my read of them, and frankly, I also still need to consolidate all the verbal comments and put them in a single report and have it as a board report. I think that's an important product for us. But within the community, the top priority at 73% was Aliso Canyon, and the vast majority, when you combine it immediately or as soon as possible, we're looking at 79% want it closed. Whether you do it now or you do it as soon as possible, that's the sum of the two. Community safety and policing, to me, I could sense the anxiety in a lot of comments about racing. There's a lot of resentment about the racing issues. There's a lot of resentment about the traffic concerns. A lot of resentment about this lack of feeling of safety. You know, I want to be able to walk, and I feel unsafe to walk in my neighborhood. And that really just resonated with me. So, we'll gather that information. About 30% expressed concern over homelessness, traffic, and community beautification. The majority want us to focus our expenditures on safety and traffic concerns. And that stood out in the funding discussion. Did we skip the funding slide?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, next. Vic? No? Not that. Forward. One more. There. That one. On what should the PRNC spend its money? Safety and traffic, 68%. If we have money to spend on something, anything we can do to help alleviate concerns over safety or traffic is a money well spent according to our community. Community beautification is the next item at 52%, environmental sustainability at 31%, community events 21%, and local nonprofit was the least at 6%. Again, it spoke about the significant concerns over safety and
Question.
yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to say there's a significant interest in the Aliso Canyon issue, and I don't think a lot of people realize the Environmental Sustainability Committee deals with the Aliso Canyon issue, and that might have changed the priorities here.
This is not about the committee. This is about people's perspective about a topic. Their perspective about environment sustainability is different than their perspective about Elisa King. You know, their perspective about environmental sustainability is about renewables, solar contribution, those kind of things. They separate the two in their mind.
I don't know that that's true.
Well, I'm just saying the respondents.
Yeah. No, we saw it because on the previous one, the environmental was really low and WISA was number one. So they're not connecting these two. Yeah,
Okay, so, no, go back, please. Again, on the expenditures, we want to focus on safety and traffic. Community beautification was next. The attendance, 79%, have not been to a single meeting over the last year. But again, however, what we do clearly matters, as we see in the responses that we got, and I think that should be encouraging to all of us. One more. And you know what, it's not all negative. I shouldn't say it's all negative, it hasn't been negative, but I wanted to capture some of the positive feedback that we got and let everybody know about it. These are those that were gracious to say some of the thank yous for all the work that the board does. And many people also noted they're grateful for actually being asked an opinion about this. And again, it validated the value of the survey. And one more. That was the best I got. My daughter is the one that was given the task of entering all the responses into Excel. And so we were sitting at the weekend at the office working on it, and she came in laughing her butt off because we got this envelope. The guy wrote on it, "Build the city for the stand." Here's the kicker. The envelope arrived in the mail. You can't make this up. That's it. That's the general feedback. We'll consolidate these. Susan, what can I answer?
Oh, so did you want to put this on our website, or you're going to consolidate it?
I got to add the additional responses, add the Korean translations, and then put in the text information that we received into some way to make it presentable in a document.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not gonna, burst anyone's bubble, but if you forgot about the gated communities, the PUDs, that 60% safety statistic is skewed because you're missing county data. So it's probably more like 40%. I'm just saying.
Say again, I'm sorry.
Communities are not going to put that on high on the list. They're gated communities.
You know, Sherry, like we all say and do, we're doing the best.
I know. Who chose the topics and categories on those surveys?
We brought this to the board and we debated which topic goes here, which topic goes
More
there.
about like cultural or like things, like fun things, like other, like a street fair.
I think it was a bench.
We had a white fence.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure the answer is no, but is there a way to separate the people who have never come to a meeting and what they voted on? Because if it's that important to them, they would at least show up to one meeting.
They might have worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Right, but throughout the entire year, you can't show up at one.
A stakeholder is not required to come to the meeting.
No, they're not, but I'm saying they want this so bad, they're not making an effort to come here and have someone come on their behalf.
Lane, the system doesn't work that way.
I was just curious if we could break up to see who comes here, what's the world.
We know.
I think it's really
illuminating that you didn't talk to the gated communities. I'll tell you why. All of us in the non-gated communities do think our streets are all busted up. We do think we need better, safety out here because of these donut jerks and the Lamborghinis that are crashing. I mean, we really do have concern, and I think that it really was very luminous to that. And I'm glad that I think a separate survey would be great to know how the gated communities feel. I don't need to feel that for them to feel excluded, but I think it was a very interesting survey. So thank you.
Ma'am?
Zip code wise, how far do you
These are all within the PRNC boundaries, and that's all 91346 north of the 118 between Aliso Canyon Park and basically Brown. And I need to show you.
About traffic, the community was years ago, and we are building now, and we have shopping centers, storehouses, we have a whole game about the traffic.
That's what we have to figure out and discuss.
But there is nothing we can do. Well, we have more people coming, instead of more.
So we ignore it?
No, I'm asking.
I don't have the answer. The point is, we received this feedback. Now our job is to figure out how to act on it. All right. Thank you all. And by the way, I also received one letter. Someone bothered to not to fill out the survey and sent a detailed letter about how she and her husband were treated at the PRNC meeting, and she was told that she didn't belong. Her opinion is not of value, so I sent her a response back, profusely apologizing for whatever that happened when, and asked her if she can give us another chance to come to our meetings and be part of our community. So hopefully we'll see them in the future months.
Did she say when the incident was?
She didn't put the time. She just said a few years ago. That's all.
Oh, 2 years ago.
That's not the important thing. The important piece is that the stakeholder took the effort to comment and they received a response. That's all we got. Okay.
Isn't thank your daughter for us?
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Item 16. Jason.
All right. So, let me pull up the poll results here. We're looking at August 11th because August 18th, I got 5 people only. And then for the retreat. Sorry. And Andrew, you can be here August 11th. So that's important. That was a problem with the other dates. So,
Sarah, thank you.
we were talking about the country club, Port Valley Country Club. So that's pretty much it. I think we can go ahead and, do they need a deposit to reserve, you think?
Of course. Not usually. Question, how many will be missing on the 11th?
So I got, on the 11th, actually, I'm sorry, 8. David is the only one that said he couldn't come.
Sorry, David. I can. My son
did that for me. Alex, are you?
11, yes, 11, Jason.
Okay, so we have 2 that can only...
8.
So that's really the least amount of no-shows that we have, so already we have, your plan, because Hassan, you responded that you could make the 11th, but now you can't.
I think that was the 18th.
August 11th, you told me on the poll.
I don't have my phone, I left it.
Oh, okay, and it probably won't work anyway. But you said you could make it when you responded to the poll. So hopefully.
Maybe I'm mistaken the date.
Yeah, so far all I have is David who has a conflict. So,
Is that the date we're going to do it?
yeah, can you go ahead and reserve that, Andrew, the 11th?
So we're shooting for the 11th?
It's already on hold.
Yeah, we're
available on
going to do the 11th.
9 o'clock to 12 o'clock?
Okay, and
Wasn't it 9 to 2?
I put,
Whatever we got.
well, I put 9 to 12, but what did we do last year, 9 to 12?
no, it was longer than that.
Went to 2.
Yeah, we had lunch instead of breakfast.
So, well, let's reserve 9 to 2 then.
Same kind of lunch spread as last year? Kind of
Yeah,
copy last year?
I mean, I was happy with this last week.
And that's the 11th?
August 11th.
So that's 3 days after our board meeting, correct? Board meeting's August 8th?
Yes.
Discuss different things.
And I appreciate that. I'm asking from a budget vote
Yeah,
perspective.
that was.
That's why I'm asking. Don't we need to vote on the budget for it? Or not?
Yes.
I'm asking. I'm not-
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Did you get the
An up to
email?
amount is fine.
It's on.
No, I appreciate that. So, when are we gonna do that?
We should do it right now. And the approval of the date in this agenda item, if we all agree on the 11th, then the motion, which has not been made yet, should include a funding amount.
And I replied to the email to the two of you to add something for a budget.
When is it due? When is it supposed to be in? Date?
What?
The budget?
Already. That's why we're doing it.
Yesterday.
That's why we're doing it in Agenda 20.
But you know what? I never received any response to item 16 when I sent out the draft agenda that says, add the budget to the motion. The budget, the item always says to finalize the PRNC retreat date, and I sent an email saying, don't we have to do all these things before we have the meeting? I got no answer. So now, where's Jasmine? Do I have a problem adding a budget to this motion?
Says possible action.
I need to read the motion as it's written. To know.
The only thing it says,
There is no motion as it's written.
the motion says discussion and possible action to finalize the PRNC retreat dates.
Sounds like
Yeah,
finalizing.
you can't. If it doesn't have a dollar amount, you can't add one in now.
So that means you need a special meeting right after. Can we say, can you finagle this and say, with funding similar to last year, without a number? Is there a way?
No. Because whenever public funds are being spent, the public needs, I think it's called a preponderance, there's like a legalese term of what the public needs reasonable notice that you're going to be spending public funds. So it has to be on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Can't we just put it on the 8th? On the next agenda on August 8th and vote on it?
Well, the order for the venue needs to be done in,
But we don't have to do anything.
well, but we can't commit a price that they need without having approval of the budget. If we commit and we sign something and they start and take that commitment and then for any reason we cannot approve it, then we've messed up. Okay,
I would suggest that we proceed. They've always been very accommodating, and we do not have to sign a contract to have this event.
well,
I would approve and proceed and let me speak to them. And if there are any issues, then we can visit that if they have a funding issue. And if we have a special meeting, what they call special meeting.
okay, I'm not only concerned about them, I'm also concerned as to whether the city's going to ask us for a contract. So we'll find out. But at this point, I guess we can't do a budget item on it, so we're finalizing the date.
Okay.
And it's the 11th,
Yes.
and,
You have a hand.
There's Jasmine.
yes, Jasmine?
The city's only going to require a budget if it's an ongoing expense, which it's not, or if it exceeds $9,999.99, which I doubt it's going to. So, but because you're approving your budget on item 20, I think speaking to them, finding out how much it is, and then worst case, if you need to call a special. But I think you'll be fine with approving item 20.
20 is going to be
Well, I'm not concerned about 20,
I understand.
yeah. Okay. All right, do we need to vote on 16? We're just finalizing the date, so we're not voting on it, so we're just discussing and finalize the date. All right. Where are we? 17. Susan.
All right. So,
This is discussion with possible action to authorize me or someone else to do a community impact statement on a council file. If I don't recall, a community impact statement is how we can be an advisory to the city council, the people that actually get paid and make decisions. And so when we write a community impact statement, we vote on the language, and then it goes into a formal system, it becomes part of the formal record. And so this particular council file is 18-0247. And it is directing the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power to include a 100% renewable energy scenario into their integrated resource plan, okay? And that lays out their strategies for the next 20 years. And this is important to us because really, obviously, if we have renewable energy, we don't need fossil fuel like gas. And so we're trying to get to 100% renewable energy as quickly as possible. And so this would be us as a board stating that we agree with that council file, that we want to have DWP include a 100% renewable energy model in their integrated resource plan. Now, there was a previous motion that talked about studying this, but it was just a working group. But we want this at a more formal level into their integrated resource plan again for LADWP. And then again, we can be going on the public record and saying, yes, we want this study, and the study, the scenario. And that really is, where we need to be going as soon as possible. Because again, if you have renewable energy, Aliso Canyon hopefully becomes a non-issue, right? And so that is the motion.
It's a discussion item first, and I'd like to put in a consideration for the fact that I personally, as stated, have a problem with this council file because it excludes biogas. And biogas is generated from wastewater treatment plants and from landfills. And it is a methane that is generated from it that otherwise would simply be released into the atmosphere. This is like saying, I don't want to spend energy recycling plastic material. So let me not create and build a facility that uses energy to recycle material. There's wastewater that's generated. It has carbon dioxide in it. It either gets released into the atmosphere or it gets harvested as an energy source. But we have to deal with that wastewater. Landfills birth methane all the time. We either collect it and harvest it, or it gets released into the atmosphere. So it's a little short-sighted to simply make a blanket exclusion on everything, the way it's stated at the end. Because it says, I further move at the end of the motion that the renewable portfolio standard excludes biomass, biogas, nuclear energy. And I appreciate the nuclear energy and the biomass statement. The biogas to me is short-sighted because that means if you don't use it and count it, you're basically saying let it be released into the atmosphere. If I don't know about it, it's not harming me. And it's not a smart decision.
Can I ask you a question about biogas? So, they collect biogas at the waste management, is it waste management?
At the landfill.
At the landfill. Yeah. What are they currently doing with that biogas now? And then my other is a comment, because from my understanding, and I'm not an expert at all in biogas, you have to have a certain, if you're going to collect something, it has to be in a certain level of purity, perhaps, or that perhaps may be the reason for excluding it, is that it's not able to be collected in enough purity to, they can't take biogas and put it in our homes.
No, what happens, for example, in wastewater plants, like the Hyperion plant,
right.
They generate biomass that is the sludge from the biological process.
Right.
Instead of sending it to a field and let it decay in the field, they put it through digesters to turn it into methane.
Right.
And they collect that methane and use it to power the wastewater facility.
Okay.
So it either gets released as CO2 or gets collected and used as an energy source. Either way, it's got to go to carbon dioxide. But the question is, do you use it first as an energy source before it goes into carbon dioxide, or you just let it go?
So perhaps these are being used on site for these facilities?
Wastewater plants do that. I don't know where the landfill sends it, but the reality is if they don't collect it, it's simply going to burp into the atmosphere.
They're required to collect.
They're required.
They are collecting. They're
Right.
required to collect.
But then to collect it, they can't just, they can't,
No,
they don't
use
ship
it
it.
on-
They use it on site most of the time, yes.
So that perhaps is someplace now, and maybe that's the reason why, they're excluding it.
I don't know. If they generate energy on site, that means they're not buying energy from the grid.
Right.
And that's the trade-off.
But the idea here is to get energy from solar, let's say, and then give it to the homeowners, or give it to the grid, to the utility. That's the idea. If you can't take that biogas and feed into the grid or give it to homeowners, then it's kind of an obsolete technology.
This is not about giving it to homeowners, because this is an instruction to LADWP.
Well, DWP generates energy, right? And they sell energy.
But not gas. They don't sell gas.
The motion is about,
Yes.
the motion is about, should biogas, and nuclear energy be considered renewable energy for the purposes of this model, okay? And the motion as written wants to exclude them.
All three.
All three. I'm silent on that. I just say we're for this motion, but if we want to distinguish our, if the board feels we want to include biogas, then that's up to the board.
Well, the idea behind the council file is, supporting the renewable energy, the council file itself.
Correct.
Written as we support it.
Right.
But there's also a comment where you can make a suggestion in there.
Correct.
If you want to add a sentence, perhaps saying, I would,
So you support it contingent on,
well, you can't
excluding biogas from the motion.
Right, because you see, this is part of the motion. I further move.
It's part of the city council
It's
motion.
part of the motion. So Isam is saying, I've been silent on it, I just, but if we want to add, we don't want biogas excluded from the 100% renewable portfolio standard model. We can say that. I don't know.
Board, thoughts, Becky?
Yeah, this kind of is a very important decision, and it looks kind of off the cuff. I think, I don't know when it's due to be voted on in chamber, but I would like either to see it discussed at a committee meeting, or have someone come here and address it to the board so we all understand it, because I kind of feel like it's being thrown at us on the fly. And I don't feel comfortable voting on it because I don't really understand the total ramifications of it. Just my opinion.
Do we know the schedule of the motion?
Yeah, it's back to committee, so we have time.
We have time.
Why don't we get someone at, like our next meeting?
Other board opinion on it? What do you think?
Oh, go ahead, Hassan.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Becky here. There is a little bit more into it than just renewal from solar. There is, all sort of stuff. But going back to the point you mentioned also, which is better? Just throwing stuff in the atmosphere, at least get something out of it and then do it. So I do agree, we probably need a little bit more info before we make a decision on this.
So
You're the author. Would you like to consider maybe setting up, not just tabling it, can we maybe for the next meeting make an effort to get somebody
What's
to
that
talk to
gentleman
us?
from DWP? He spoke at the bank. Jason is his name, I believe.
yeah, Jason Stinnett.
Yeah, he spoke at the bank meeting about this. I went to that meeting. It was like
Would you want to get,
He would be good.
So somebody who wants.
It's a presentation he did. It was like 20 minutes about all of the renewable energy portfolio and all the percentages and all that. He he spoke at Vank. It was a very good presentation. He's from DWP, this gentleman. His name is Jason.
And he's in favor of it, so maybe we can get him and someone who isn't.
No, it's not that he's not in favor.
They can't take favor because they're city department, so it's just information.
You could explain biomass. Everybody knows what it's
How
about.
about you get Jack Humphreyville here with him and let's have this schedule.
It's not a debate. DWP.
I know, but
We need to understand what biomass and
This is
biogas.
something DWP is doing. This is DWP is doing this, and he is from DWP, and he can explain what their 100% renewable.
All right, so is that, would we be okay moving it and getting more information at the next meeting?
Right, August or September. I think we have elections in August.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Can I
you.
have public comment on that?
Yes.
I'm certainly not going to argue with you. You know what you're talking about. But I've also trained with the Climate Reality Project 4 times that we discussed this at length. There are pros and cons. But first of all, Becky, I really appreciate that. I agree with you. And Jason, excellent point as well. I stand behind City Council. And whatever, we're presenting, I think it should align with the City Council. That's just my feeling.
Okay. All right, any other comment? Brandon? Yeah.
I would like to see one or maybe 2 professional speakers from preferably both sides to give us the full thing. And then I'm most likely going to be 100% in favor of it, but I'd like to read the details myself and hear experts from all sides because I think we have time.
Okay.
So that would be one side that wants to exclude biomass, biogas, and liquid.
But again, we don't want to have a debate about it back and forth.
Got it.
There are no sides to this question. We need information so we make a more informed vote.
Got it.
All right, thank you. Item 18.
All right, number 18, discussion and possible action to approve and certify PRNC's inventory list is correct and complete to the best of our knowledge, and that it contains all items known to us to be in possession of PRNC as reported to Department of Neighborhood Empowerment during fiscal year 2017-18.
So let me ask you a little bit, how did this list get created?
I worked with PRLA to create the list, and we matched up to our invoices and our agendas and purchase lists and everything else.
Okay, because honestly, I injected the words of "to the best of our knowledge" and "known to us" because it's impossible for us to say, yes, definitely this is our entire list. So
the appointment that Gabe had with Kyle from our department, you guys went through everything that's in your storage?
Yes, everything was documented, taken pictures of, recorded, serial numbers, information.
Right. So
And
all
on
that
top
they're,
of it, we added more information.
yeah, all that they're asking for now, before the final send off to the clerk, is if you missed anything, which it was very thorough, or if you bought something since then that is not reflected on the list, and if so, can you add it? That's what, you're double checking your work.
yeah, I mean, is the solar panels and everything in here? The solar generator?
That was not clear, but no. Should not.
So you can add it now, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so what do we need to add? This is what makes me nervous about it.
Popcorn machine, I believe we have to add, and the solar machine we have to add.
Popcorn machine and solar generator.
And then
Wait, there's solar panels and then there's the battery.
Yeah,
Solar
Multiple components.
yeah, 2 panels and then 2 batteries.
What about the audio system, the cordless audio?
Right.
Yeah, that's,
So where are they?
Those are in storage.
So they're in storage.
They weren't there at the time of this.
They were probably not there at the
Was this
time
before
that
Earth Day?
the inventory appointment was conducted. They've been trying to do inventory appointments since last
3 months
year.
ago.
So, yeah.
I think we need time to update because also we ordered some new things too.
We have the signs now?
Yeah, the new signs, so if you're making a list, the new signs, the ones that we have that are out in Tampa, we're perhaps going to take those down now that.
Basically, we have to add everything to it and approve on.
Okay, so
What we
can
grant to our best of our knowledge.
can I say that we are not ready to vote on this?
It's due.
It's due, there's no choice.
Immediately.
It's due like yesterday, so
We're not ready to vote on this.
you can add the items on there now and vote on it, or
We're guessing what the items are, and this whole process is about us not guessing.
I mean, can we estimate, like, we know how many signs we ordered, we know, and then change it later down the road, or doesn't this keep updating? I mean, how, don't you have to keep, like, I mean, we buy things all the time.
right, so once the list that you approve, like up to today, the things that you bought, and then you send it over, then the clerk will take it over, and they will come up with a process by which you'll update it. I don't know how often they're gonna do that, maybe once a year, I don't know.
Okay, the bottom line is,
So we did this 3 months ago, right? So why don't we certify what we did based on our knowledge 3 months ago, and then add all the new stuff through the process that Jasmine just described?
and the motion
Because they
needs to
want-
change.
So instead of saying inventory list June 2018, you could go back to April 2018.
Yeah, it has to be.
No,
because
no,
June-
no,
Not to?
you can't.
Okay.
Can't.
They
So,
want it at the end of the fiscal year, it's June. No getting around that.
let me suggest this. I think there's a lot more harm by us certifying a list we are fairly confident is incomplete than the harm done by not submitting it on schedule. So
Agreed.
let's get our list proper, and then we'll vote on it when we have it and we're all confident about it. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right, we're tabling this motion without objection.
If you should consider that, and I don't deal a whole lot with the city clerk other than with some funding things, but just to cover yourself, you might send in literally a couple of sentences that says that we are not able to meet your deadline because there's a question about what's actually known and where it is. We will send in we will vote on the inventory as soon as we are sure that it's correct.
Do we send that through you, or?
Send it to Kyle and Corey and CC.
All right, and CC. Okay. I'll ask you their email address.
Yeah, that's fine, it's not
Okay.
going to the clerk yet.
Thank you. Okay. No,
We don't.
boss said no.
No. I can still issue that payment, actually.
All right, item 19.
Motion to approve payment to Gabriel Cameron as a board member reimbursement in the amount of $58.56. This is for printing for our last meeting.
I'll second the motion.
All right, board, comment, question? I'd like to make a comment that, just so everybody knows, we explored other options for printing. The money the amount per page is pretty much what the amount per page is that FedEx Kinko's charges, that Staples charges. You know, the 16 cents or something like that. Now it's 14 cents because what we do now is we don't ask them to consolidate. We consolidate the document as one PDF, gets emailed to them as one PDF document, so they've cut the cost to 14 cents. This is basically where we are. But the price is, amazingly, is not higher than what other print shops charge, at least the ones we looked at. If others have ideas for cheaper ones, he's always ready.
I think the idea, when I go to a lot of other neighborhood council meetings, and they have, our agendas that look like this. And I think the idea is that we don't, and we're doing good, we're definitely getting better. We've had packets that are just huge. And that's where it gets crazy because, everything else is going paperless. And I think that we can find ways to if you see other neighborhood councils, the way they do things, they don't print out every single thing. They have a public copy. Everything is online. We have access to it. So I think, it's a sustainability issue. It's a, saving paper. It's a cost issue. I think we should try and keep it within this $50. It was getting up to what, almost $300.
So then let me take it one extra step. If we're gonna make a decision, let's make a decision. Right now, first of all, we gotta have the full copy for the public to have with the attachments. That's fine.
Okay.
We have operated on the idea that the board needs the attachments so they can read the substance of every motion that we have.
But
We can
that's
make-
not the motion. We can vote yes or no, we don't need to get into all of this. We can yes or no if we're gonna take it.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to get, do we have to get into
You're restraining
all
it.
of that? I don't know that we need,
Either you pay him or not, that's my motion. Yes.
right? I'm sorry. But I think we just vote on
Sure.
the motion.
I made the comment about the cost.
That's all right, that's all right.
Brought it up.
Public comment? No public comment, call the vote.
All right, David.
Yes.
Hassan.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Becky.
Yes.
Assad. Yes. Gabriel. Yes. Isam.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, item 20. Andrew, I have an apology to make to you because it doesn't look like the supporting material made it into here.
Okay.
So if you can read the motion and explain it as stated in the agenda, that would be appreciated.
Sure. The motion, so I guess this is a discussion possible motion. To approve a temporary budget for fiscal year 2018-19 of $17,000 for general and operating costs, $15,000 for neighborhood purpose grants, and $10,000 for community improvement projects for a total of $42,000.
You want to explain?
The explanation is, like, and we've gone through this now every year. The budget was already due in June. We really need to have our retreat in June, like early June. If you enter the fiscal year without an approved budget, you get $333 a month for 3 months. That's it. Okay? It's basically you have 3 months to really get your poop in order. Okay? Or you can't function. This is why we're having pizza tonight. Because we have money. Okay? This is and we went deep in the weeds last year on this exact motion, and I do not want us in the weeds again. This is just a motion so I can put in numbers. We are not held to this. No matter what budget we come up with, we can amend that budget at any time. This is just to get us to have all of our funds released so we can pay for our operating expenses, so I can pay for the retreat.
Okay, can you make a motion?
That's your motion.
Well, I would like to, but usually like to
Make a motion.
I make a motion to approve a temporary budget for fiscal year 2018-19 of $17,000 for general and operating costs, $15,000 for neighborhood purpose grants, and $10,000 for community improvement projects, for a total of $42,000.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
You
Board
did, I was
comments?
going to.
On the second
Board comments, discussion?
Yeah. I would like to.
Jason? Okay, public comments?
Do it.
Call the vote?
All right, David. David?
Yes.
Maybe? Hassan?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Assad? Yes. Gabriel, yes. Isam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 21? Hold on. Item 19 and 20 are funding motions, is that correct? May at least 19?
Yes.
Does anybody have an ethics exploration?
No, everybody's good now.
Everybody's good? Okay. All right, item 21. Dave?
Yes. Number 21, discussion and possible action authorizing PRNC to set up and staff a booth at the Valley Disaster Preparedness Fair, September 29, 2018.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Board discussion, comment?
Thank you so much.
All right.
Can we do the wheels and don't give away all of our stuff like we did last year?
We can do whatever who's in charge of it wants to do.
Gabriel.
Public comment? All the vote?
All right, David,
Yes.
Hassan,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Hassan? Yes. Gabriel, yes, Isam,
Yes.
and motion passes.
All right.
Isam, before you adjourn,
I'm sorry?
before you
Before I
adjourn,
turn, what's the deal?
September 22nd, there is the event at the City Hall for the board. You're aware of it?
A Congress, maybe.
Yeah, the Congress.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, so just everybody, be aware, register, and
Okay.
that's the comment I forgot to make that.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, what's going on with, what can we do board members?
The applications are due through the 27th of July, and we'll be taking a vote at the August meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, without objection, meeting is adjourned.